Economic development is on the minds of many utilities in the United States. But with that economic development comes often an industrial user or a big manufacturing facility, and with that comes challenges for water and wastewater. Not only is this a concern of capacity for the water being supplied to the plant or collected from the plant, it's also a concern of the strength of that waste and the wastewater treatment plant's capabilities to treat it. So here's a couple of tips that you can use in the next conversation you have with your industrial users to become a good partner and bring that economic development to your community. Hey everyone, it's Bob Crossan for Water World and Wastewater Digest. I'm joined today by Damian Georgino. He is partner for Womble, Dickinson, an international law firm, and we're going to talk about corporations' approaches to water purchasing and all the things that are happening and mergers, acquisitions, and stuff like that, and what that means for you as a water utility and how you can be a better partner with those kinds of companies and corporations. So thanks so much, Damian, for being here. I appreciate you
Certainly.
taking the
Thanks for
time.
having me.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start? I want to start kind of high level here. What are some of the challenges that these companies tend to run into when you're advising them? What are some of the challenges they run into with their water and their water purchasing?
Well, it depends on when you're looking, what type of company you're looking at. If you're an industrial user of water, water takes on importance if water is a raw material,
Hmm.
and that can be everything from food and beverage to chip manufacturing, where they have to have ultra pure water. So it depends on your perspective of water, and quite honestly, your volume of water. On the industrial side, you find that industry uses a lot more than water by volume than residential users, and how they look at that use of water is changing. And quite honestly, right now they're looking at it more, a lot of it from an efficiency standpoint, from a cost standpoint, and from an ESG perspective. You also have with the larger companies, when you look at it broadly, you have, as you well know, the water energy nexus and the
Hmm.
water energy nexus for economic development. So when you put that all together, industry is now reevaluating how they look at water. If you're a
Hmm.
data center, you use a lot of water, use a lot of energy. If you're a large manufacturer, you use water. Historically, that water has been managed in-house. And
Hmm.
what you're seeing right now, because of the capital equipment and because of the processes that are involved, you're seeing a migration away from everything in the fence I want to own to the deboom, deboot sort of strategies where water is outsourced on the front end and the back end on the wastewater side as well to those folks where they are experts and more appropriately looking at how you manage compliance and how you manage your ESG responsibility. So it's evolving right now.
Hmm.
You're taking assets off the balance sheets of corporations and putting them in the hands of investors, generally speaking. I think a lot of the more enlightened industrial users are looking at water as to how it fits into a grander scheme of things. How can I use my water more smartly? And with that comes the use of AI, the use of
Hmm.
systems other than treatment to make intelligent decisions, and automatic systems, quite honestly.
Hmm.
You also find that these companies now, when particularly with new facilities, when they come into an area, what's the water scheme look like there? Whether it's water sourcing, how much water is available to me, and then what do I do with it afterwards? And for the utilities, oftentimes when you have economic development, it taxes. Maybe sometimes it's
Hmm.
out in the middle of nowhere or in a smaller rural community. It taxes that rural community's ability to deliver fresh water and to treat wastewater. Some of these wastewaters are complex. So not only are you finding an outsourced means to manage water and pay for water instead of paying by capital equipment programs, you're paying on long-term contracts. But more significantly, what's coming in vogue right now is recycle, recirc, reuse.
Hmm.
And that has a lot of benefits to the municipalities, the utilities, because they're not seeing that volume of water come through. There are a lot of efficiencies associated with that. And they're getting a lot of good ESG results from that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
I
really
think that's one of the biggest changes you see happening.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because it is really interesting. I often hear about like the capacity challenges, but there is that water quality challenge involved too. That sometimes when an industrial user moves into an area, suddenly, like you said, it gets more complex, that flow that they have to deal with, not just the amount that there is, but also the quality of that
Well,
water
look
and
at chip
how they need to treat
manufacturers.
it.
Chip manufacturers, right? Chip manufacturers. I think I saw a report that said something on the order of 15 to 20% of
Mm.
a chip manufacturer cost of a plant. It goes into water. It's both creating the purest water on the face of the earth. And I've heard folks say it's so pure it'll kill you. You know, joking around. But then you have these complex waste streams,
Hmm.
and generally, historically, what's happened is you negotiate for the highest limit in your NPDES permit coming out the back end, but it's a cost center, so you go for a low cost solution. Now, the more enlightened view is, why don't I keep it in place? Why don't I treat it so that I can reuse it? I don't harm the environment. I don't have to negotiate those permits. It's all staying in one place. And by the way, why don't I outsource this to somebody who knows how these treatment technologies work, how to
Hmm.
manage it, and take responsibility for that, for the compliance aspects of it. And in the meantime, I can get these ESG goals like ZLD
Hmm.
or some other notions, reduced carbon footprint, because let's face it, one of the biggest costs of water is transportation.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Well, I mean, talking about costs, what are some of the ways that these companies are approaching their water purchasing agreements or their agreements with utilities? What are some of the things that they try to come to the table with when they have those negotiations?
I think oftentimes historically it's been, I've got a lot of volume. I will reduce. I want a volume discount for my water, for my fresh
Hmm.
water coming in. And I think that historically is maybe a little bit awkward to look at, because all of a sudden, yes, you do want the volume discounts, but everywhere else it should be a volume increase.
Hmm.
That is to say, if you use more water, we want to create an incentive for you to use less water. So I think they're looking at it as, what are my water needs and how do I best source them? And how do I source them in a responsible manner? And then once it comes into the system, how do I use it efficiently so that it's not wasted, quite honestly. We're working on a project where it's a $1 billion facility, where it's a food and beverage project where they're creating their product, and they've gone to ZLD and they want to do recycle, recirc, reuse, because they're in the middle of a small community and they just want to be good neighbors, and they want to
Hmm.
use that water in a very efficient manner. Even though I'm here in North Carolina, they are in North Carolina. We aren't considered, when people look at North Carolina, I think we've got a lot of water, but we're actually water short. So they're
Hmm.
being responsible.
Yeah. So when utilities are coming to those conversations, whether it's a water or wastewater utility, I imagine those conversations are a little different. But what are some of the ways that, or what are some of the things that those utilities could bring to that conversation to help bridge that partnership gap and make this a process that's beneficial for not just the industrial user, but also for the utility at the end?
Great question. I think every utility is a little bit different. And by that, I mean, we have 53,000 water and wastewater utilities in the US.
Hmm.
Um, Very fragmented industry. I think it really depends on the size and what you're able to offer. If you're a rural community, I'm not certain how much you offer other than water.
Hmm.
I don't, and that's good. You have water to deliver, but how do you do that in an efficient manner that supports your rate structure and doesn't, in a lot of rural communities, you have some challenges from a pricing standpoint, from a rate standpoint. How do I not impact those rates?
Hmm.
I think one of the issues you have is energy. Um, One of the challenges that a lot of communities have is, you can't have water without energy. You can't have energy without water, but you can't have economic development without both. So I
Hmm.
think communities coming in delivering both of those are good for a lot of the new developments, the manufacturing development, industrial developments.
Well, thanks so much, Damian. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your knowledge and expertise in this area with us. And for everyone who's watching, please check out our video description below. We'll have some more links to some information down there that you can check out on this subject. And once more to you, Damian, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, you're more than welcome.